Hi there, everybody, and welcome to the Growth Execution podcast. This is the 7th of the 3rd season, all about how to launch your business. Now, if you have been sitting in lockdown 2, following lockdown 1, and thinking all about that idea that's just been burning away, or you've got a business and perhaps the market's changed somewhat over the last year or so, this is where you can learn all about those that have launched their businesses and how you might be able to pick up some tips about how to go about launching yours. I'm delighted to be joined today by Lynn Cannell. Hello, Lynn.
Hello, Mal. How are you? Thank you for inviting me.
You're very welcome. Thank you for making time.
This Friday afternoon.
It's all dark outside and everything. Yeah. So glad. Thanks very much. Lynn set up LCA Jobs. How long ago was it?
20 years ago this year.
Congratulations.
Yes. A memorable year for many reasons.
What a milestone. So going to ask you first of all, just to kind of cast your mind back to then, and what made you start LCA Jobs?
I was an estate agent in a previous life. So I had obviously a strong connection and a love for estate agency. I was in estate agency for 12 years. And then moved on to recruitment and sort of, I guess, lost the love a little bit for the methods behind what was then 20 years ago, the recruitment process. If you can imagine an age before email and social media, we were kind of glued to a fax machine, and the mission was to try and get a CV across to a client before somebody else. It was quite a simple business, and I think I just felt disillusioned with the whole process. I felt that people and recruitment was much more complex than speed and bums on seats. So my initial reasoning behind setting up LCA was to offer something very different, and that was much more around the complexities of understanding people, recruiting in-house for a small selection of clients, but also mystery shopping their team and providing a training solution once the areas were identified of training needs. So it was the launch of LCA was very different to what it is now.
Yeah, for sure. And what kind of really stuck out for you? I mean, it's at any point in time, launching a new business is a huge undertaking. When you were going into it, what was kind of the key sort of driver for you?
If I'm honest with you, I had very little preparation. I was initially approached by a client who wanted me to work for them in-house. I then, having looked at the issues that they had, suggested some other add-on bolt-ons, i.e., let's not just look at getting the right people in, but let's look at what your existing people are doing, because that might be the reason you keep looking for staff, and upskill the ones that are there. So in my case, I wouldn't say that my launch of my business was particularly really well thought out and prepared. It evolved from quite a small seedling.
Yeah, and that's
but lots of expertise.
Yeah, and no, I guess, sorry, I'm sure that a lot of businesses, and perhaps the ones that you recruit for as well, you come across these relatively new businesses that are all, wanting to get that first member of staff in and all very excited about life and things like that. And I mean, I guess most of them aren't really linear, are they? They're all kind of a bit like, right, I've started with an idea, I hope this is right, and I'm going to try and get by.
I would absolutely agree with that. And I think that in my experience, my life experience, speaking to other business owners, which anyone looking to set up a business is predominantly going to be communicating with, I think we all have a similar trait. My fascination with behavioural science, but many business owners are they're risk takers, they're impatient, and they're very confident in and determined in what they want to do. So quite often that means that they'll get an idea, they'll think it's great, they are sure they're going to succeed, they run into it, because they haven't got the patience to work out, plans for 12 months, let alone 10 years. And they hope that they'll be successful. And I think I fall a little in that category. I mean, 20 years on, I'm still here, but I think that a lot of entrepreneurs kind of just have a great idea, lots of passion, lots of enthusiasm, lots of energy, and they think that's going to be the ingredients for success.
And a bit of overconfidence, essentially.
Yeah, a bit of how can it fail, So I don't. It doesn't really cross your mind, and I don't even see that you identify failure with failure. They're just lessons learned. So a lot of it is mindset, isn't it? We know that historically many of the most successful entrepreneurs have failed many times, but would never really see that as a failure, rather than all part of learning how to build a better business.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And for every failure, you kind of learn a little bit more. There's that phrase, isn't there? There's one way to succeed, a million ways to fail. And it's the failures that give you all that extra information. And do you think that kind of, that anybody would really get going without those ingredients, without that sort of, I'm going to say gung-ho kind of risk-taking sort of mentality? Do you think that's what almost every business requires?
I think by very nature of the fact that you're starting something new, there's always going to be a risk. So you've got to, it might be calculated, some will calculate more than others, but you've got to accept there's always going to be a risk when starting your own business. And I think that it is embracing, it's a bit like going on a roller coaster or watching a scary movie. You either translate the fear to excitement, and that gives you energy and enthusiasm, or you look at it and think, I couldn't possibly, and you find all kinds of reasons not to go ahead with it. So I think you have to have a real determination. You must be willing to work incredibly hard, because there's easier options, far easier. You've got to be resilient. You are going to have to pick yourself up and keep going in a way that you would never do in an employed environment. So you've got to, your background and your attitude towards life is going to be a big big factor in whether you get started and how long you remain in business, I think.
Yeah. And do you see, I mean, you must have interviewed thousands and thousands of people over the last 20 years, right? Just in terms of candidates and those running businesses. Do you see a trade? Do you ever kind of look at people and go, you shouldn't be working for somebody, you should go and set up your own? Because yeah, for sure. And there's lots of people you can imagine in this particular sector, the sector that I specialize in, property. Most people want to be their own boss. It's part of the attraction of the industry, is that they have, in lots of cases, that autonomy to look at it as though it's their own business, because of the uncapped commission and the fact they don't need to have pre-qualifications, and their aspirations are huge normally to have their own business or be a property developer, but the realism of that is very different. I love their enthusiasm, but I know that many people have aspirations that they never fulfill, and there's the difference. Yeah, and you and I, we come across people who have great ideas, and a lot of it is about the execution side, right? It's actually getting on and getting the energy up, and then getting the ideas out on plan, and at least getting on with the startup piece. And that's a really kind of huge milestone to come past. Do you find, when you're talking about the types of people that do go into their own business afterwards, and I think probably you talk about the property market, estate agency, it's one of those places where people can come out, as you say, they want to be their own boss. They come out from underneath somebody else in another business and then go and set up on their own. And then they bring people through, one of whom will then go up and set on their own and their own. Do you find that there are issues, and I'm thinking people out there right now will be working for somebody and potentially thinking about leaving and setting up on their own. What issues have you come across when people have done that in the past?
What excuse? What has been their motivation to do
No,
it?
what issues? What kind of challenges have people had when they've come out from a business, say estate agency, and decided to set up on their own?
One fundamentally is that they underestimate running a business is very different to selling houses or whatever their chosen career is. I think that they pretty much without exception think it's going to be a lot easier than it is. They underestimate the time, the cost. I think that the general expectation is if I can sell houses so well and be a top performer for this company, I can go elsewhere and do the same. They underestimate the business element, the marketing, all the clever strategies that are put in place for these successful businesses to have got them in a position where people are actually coming to them and they're just converting it rather than going out and actually getting it from scratch. That's a very different proposition. So I think that there's few people that expect it to be as hard as it is.
Yeah, and are therefore prepared for some of the slog. And different markets as well, I imagine, kind of have an impact. So if we are, as many commentators think, heading into recession next year, what does that mean for your business, for the sort of the recruitment side? Is it something that is really much more difficult in those environments?
I think in my experience, and I've worked through good and bad markets, both in estate agency and in recruitment, and I feel that we're at our most valuable when it's a tough market, because the reality is, from a recruitment perspective and from an estate agency, when the market's good and easy, you don't necessarily need to be as skilled and good at your job to be able to sell a house, and therefore the need to pay a recruitment agent, if you just need someone to answer phones and book appointments and open a door, you could probably do yourself. When the market's harder and you need someone that is much more skilled at understanding what people want, going out and finding that property and using their, not only their sales skills, but their problem solving skills and their proactive skills to make things happen. And that's when we find that the service we provide becomes more valuable. So I enjoy that market better, because I actually think that we have to do what we do regardless, but it's appreciated and brings more value in a tough market.
Yeah, for sure. And when you think back over, perhaps some of the tough times that you've had and the good times, what stands out for you as a kind of overcoming adversity sort of situation? What do you think in the history of the 20 years of LCA Jobs, what's sort of happened for you?
What's been our most challenging, apart from COVID? I think the most challenging in recruitment is that is like a needle in a haystack. We work with personalities rather than qualifications. So for my particular sector, it's not as simple as looking for a brain surgeon, and a brain surgeon has those qualifications and therefore is going to be a pretty strong match for the job, or an IT software developer. So for this industry, it's far more challenging. It's appealed to mass market. Everyone watches Home Under the Hammer, and it's a business you can get into without qualifications, and it seems like a great lifestyle job, and there's many people attracted to it. But to actually filter those and find the good ones, as always, for the whole 20 years, has always been the challenge, and probably what's kept us in business, because our clients find it hard and they therefore have a need for someone that can help filter that. And when I talk about starting with a fax machine and pre-internet, there was an initial perception that it's going to be a redundant role, because clients now have accessibility to the whole market if they want to. and yet it actually provided a bigger problem, as in that, there wasn't just people responding to an advert or a poster in their window. Now the whole world is applying for their job, and they could spend all day just filtering applications. So it's an evolving business, but I think there's always been a need for, and we've evolved, but there's always been a need, even though it may be different, for the clients that we've had for this whole time.
Yeah, and what do you think has been the biggest development when you look across, and since you started out? I mean, you say you started out with the fax machines and so on. What's been the thing that has changed things the most, or is it as simple as the internet?
I think you can't ignore the internet, and digital technology has made things a lot quicker. But more recently, I'd say over the last few years, certainly something that I've got incredibly interested in, and I think has made a big change, is understanding more about the science behind people's behaviours, because I think recruitment has always been quite simply text on a CV. Jobs are registered based on just how many years experience they have, and what duties they've covered. And for a business that is personality based, it just seems to have kind of been under the radar. You hope that if you make a connection with someone and you like them, that they're going to be good at the job. But actually there's technology now that helps you understand people's behaviours, that can really sort of fill the gap that I think has been missing for many, many years.
Yeah, and is that, obviously we talk a lot about kind of machines versus humans and all this sort of thing. Is that something that you can systemize, or is that something that is a human ability to see past the stats and to really engage and connect with people, or is it replicable via AI, bots, all that?
I'm very excited about AI. I think that it has the potential. We've already seen that tests in even the medical sector, have become more accurate in identifying and diagnosing than even the highly experienced doctors. So I think that there's huge potential in AI. But at the same time, my observations are that as we use technology more, and it is absolutely helping many businesses, it kind of has increased the expectation of the human element, and people don't want robots. They do want human contact, but that human contact, I feel, requires a much higher level of service and understanding. So combined, I think one without the other. Now we live in an age where I think one without the other is not going to work. But if you can find a way to really harmonise that, then I think it's very powerful. And people that aren't using both are going to be at a disadvantage, moving forward. Because I think what's happened is with COVID, lots of things have fast forwarded, and that being one of them.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. I think that there's a lot now riding on the ability of these. I mean, even when you look at the vaccine from the COVID vaccine, a lot of that was done kind of systematically and so on alongside humans. So I do see that as being a massive change, and that's certainly going to be extended and accelerated, I think, via COVID. I was listening to a podcast that was by Startups magazine recently, and they were talking very specifically about female founders. And that's a podcast I highly recommend you listen to it. Anybody out there who's interested in that, they do one on sports tech, I think, next. But one of the things, obviously, when you started out, that the kind of, and the idea of female founders, perhaps was even less prevalent than it is right now. Is that something that you found when you started out, or even looking on now, that you think that that's something that is still important to address, or is it something that's now just almost I'm not going to say solved, but certainly part of the fabric?
I think there's still a way to go, but there's definitely pace picking up in terms of women setting up in business. When I started out in a estate agency, I remember I remember the only role within an office would be a secretarial role. It was unheard of to have female managers, and but to be honest, I was quite oblivious to it. I just loved the job, and I become from an administrator, a telesales person. I was quite thrilled with that. So when I moved on and became a company's first female manager and one manager of the year in a estate agency, and the only female manager in the town that I worked in, I become aware that actually there's a huge advantage. Just rather than see it as a disadvantage, I actually saw it as a huge advantage. And yeah, I think that it's fortunately it's growing pace, and there's more and more women having the confidence to do it.
Yeah. So I've seen that. And what do you think when you think about the advice that you've received? I know you're very good at advising others. What about the advice that you've received? What would you say stands out for you as kind of the best piece of advice?
In business or in life?
Either or both. If it's good, then share it.
I think when I was very young, I would take quite a while to make decisions. And someone once said, once you make a decision, you have to believe that it's the right one and never ever regret it. So I think very early on, and I'm talking from probably 16 years of age, I've always made decisions with real conviction and never looked back at anything. Coming back to the failure thing, never looking back at anything and seeing it regretfully, always seeing it positively. So, and I think if you're in business, the most toxic thing that you can have is to constantly question whether you've done the right or wrong thing. So I think learn from better decisions than others, but always stick by with conviction, and don't look back, always look forward.
Brilliant, thank you. Do you have anybody that you kind of look up to as a sort of inspiration?
Now or present or past?
Actually, either again, just somebody that you kind of, in those times when you think, do you know what, I don't know if this is possible or if this is something that you really, you want to continue doing. Is there somebody you just kind of go, do you know what, actually that's a really great example of somebody who gives you the inspiration to continue?
Inspiration to start and continue has always been my dad. So I think that as probably with many people, he's been an amazing role model, and I don't believe I'd be where I am today without his guidance. He's been like my guru. Yeah. So I put a lot of credit to that, but through life, if you read and listen and aware of things around you, then you're always sort of trying to learn. And I guess more recently, I don't know whether you have ever listened to any of his podcasts, but I think I've been influenced more recently by Naval Ravikant. Okay. Naval Ravikant. And I just think I love the fact that he's an incredibly successful businessman. He challenges the world around him, but in a very positive way. And I think he's got a very clear idea on what's important and what's not, and confident in that. And so some of the stuff is quite controversial, but it has made me rethink many things about my life and how I want to live it going forward. So yeah, probably more recent.
Oh wow! And what sort of things then kind of come to mind in terms of that? Where do you think sort of the next phase for you and your business is?
I think, like many people this year, it's been a massive time for reflection. And to realise that whilst running a successful business, or feeling that you're achieving success in your life, or your life is meaningful and you've done some good in your life, whatever that may be. I think that what this year has done is made you look at other things that are as important, or maybe more, and to try and have a broader value on what you want to do with your life. So I think that for me, work has been all-consuming throughout my life. I've worked since I was 13 years old. I have been driven by, goals and achievement, and the financial security that brings. Maybe I'm just getting old, Mal. maybe it's not. I'm not speaking for everyone, actually, and I'm just talking as a middle-aged woman who's suddenly, going through crisis. But no, I think it's given me time to get the balance.
Yeah, and when you think back to 20 years ago, Lynn, what advice would you give her, or what do you wish she had known you had known back then?
I would have said to the 20 years ago Lynn, think about what you're doing. Think about what you're doing before you do it. What does the future look like? And have a proper plan in place, and look at the scope of what I'm doing. I filled a need and looked at some additional benefits. And I had the view 20 years ago that I would want to maximize every day and do the best I could and make every day matter. I didn't think about what the week would look like, the month, the year, the 5-year, the 10-year. So if I was talking to my 20-year ago self, I would be saying, what is the bigger picture, Lynn? And I would be breaking that down. I have a better understanding of what that looked like. Because actually, Mel, that idea that evolved is not the business of LCA. And so I don't know whether it would have been a better model had I have planned it and scaled that up. But what actually happened with the 20-year ago LCA was that I did such a good job that actually that model was no longer required. Because if you recruit really effectively, if you monitor your staff's performance so closely, and you address any issues that are needed and train them and upskill them so that they're performing exceptionally well, they stay in their job, you have little new recruitment requirements, and you are the business, you are responsible for all of that, then what I found is I had actually through doing an excellent job resulted in actually not having a business. So obviously it went in a different direction, and I scoped out geographically. But I think it's a model that actually could have been really quite effective had I have, really planned ahead.
Okay, that's really useful. Thanks. Would you do it all over again? Would you start again?
Start a business again? Start recruitment again?
Start a business again.
Start a business. Definitely, I would start a business, having learned everything that I've learned now. And I would, we're in a different age now. We things are so different. And I think that is what excites me, is that I don't think there's any interest in doing what you've done before again, but doing something new again, in an environment and an age that is entirely different and would require a completely different approach. Would definitely wise head, experience, new ideas.
Excellent.
Yeah, for sure.
Very much looking forward to that.
Whatever it may be. Got any ideas?
Brilliant. Well, listen, Lynn, thank you so much for your time. Thank you for sharing that this Friday afternoon with us and the listeners and the viewers. Always ask, what are you up to next? What's happening? Are you? I guess this is the end of the week, right? It is. It's nearly 5 o'clock on a Friday. That's kind of allowed.
Yeah. And and watch a good film, I think.
It's lockdown as well, by the way, if everybody is out of things.
On my own.
Everybody's gone.
No people inside.
Yeah, thank you so much. Really good to catch up. Take care out there. Enjoy yourself and have a great weekend.
Lovely. Thanks for inviting me again. Take care.